Okay, you're live. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, December 17th. First item on our agenda, there are no public comments for tonight. We checked previously. First agenda item for this evening is approval of the minutes from November 12th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 12th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-0. Second item is our discussion, possible action, sale of 65 Walnut Road.
Yes, you should have a resolution and I think a 4-page purchase and sale agreement in your packet. You're missing the last 2 pages, which are just the signature page. And it's a pretty straightforward transaction where the town acquired this property after a fire 4 years ago, cleaned up the space and so on, and went out to bid, received a bid from Mr. Rockamora for $25,500. We were going to try to close the deal earlier in the year, but because the transaction was being acquired through a tax sale and so on by the town, it needed like a year to sit before Mr. Rockamore could get title insurance. He was able to get it in November. So the point of it is for the town to sell it to a developer that will hopefully build a house in there that will get some property tax on the tax rolls. So it's another step, review of the purchase and sales agreement by finance. We're going to have a public hearing on Monday as part of the process, and then hopefully the town council, with the support of the finance committee, will approve the sale so that we can get this piece of property off the town books and over to Mr. Rockamore.
Okay, so you need a motion, John, to...
Well, I think just something that the finance committee reviewed the purchase and sales agreement and is acceptable in the terms and conditions so listed, something like that.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Second on that?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the authorization to award bid to purchase 65 Walnut Road as stated in our packets here.
I'll second.
Okay. And John, just as part of discussion, just a clarification on, I get more procedurally. I notice we're not using the town attorney for this. We're using Rome McGuigan.
Well, I think this started when Rome McGuigan was the town attorney.
Okay.
Because it was about 4 years ago when Ansonia and Rocky Hill was playing for the state title. And he was the attorney at the time. So there was probate involved and demolition and so on. So he was handling it. So this would pretty much close one of the few cases left with Rome McGuigan.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
And do we know, so I mean, over time, of course, if this town's contributed to the tax, if this property is contributing to the tax rolls, you know, we'll get made whole based on what the town expended to secure the site. Do we know how close that $25,500 comes to what we had to pay to remediate the site after the fire there?
Well, I think it covers the remediation, but because it was probate, we did have some legal expenses and so on. So, and then of course we did probably lose some tax revenue during that time period. So, as I say, once it gets back on the tax rolls, then we'll start getting close to accumulating some of our costs associated with handling his property from like a public safety standpoint.
And then just the reason why, so we had we've seen this item come up a couple times, and just to confirm, the reason why it's coming up again is just because after it's sold at the tax sale, it needs to sit in case there are any other claimants from the family. And then now that period of time has expired, is that correct?
Right. I think it's more past practices where the owners of the property or the former owners are still living, and they do have that option for so many months to come back and pay off the debt on the property. Where this case here, really, there was no heirs to the property.
Thanks.
Chris, it did note under the recommendations that it had to do with the ability to obtain title insurance on the property.
Mhm.
And I believe the statute of limitations was 1 year, which had to pass. And that's not a legal opinion by any means. I'm just reading the words.
Right.
Something along those lines, and that's now passed in November. So the effort is to get it off the town's books before the end of the year, of the calendar year.
And Jet, so this was going to the highest bidder, obviously, but did we get an appraisal on the land? I'm just curious, like how close we got to what we think market value is.
No, we didn't get an appraisal because we didn't want to incur any costs. And again, it's pretty much just a vacant piece of property.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. If we all set with questions?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor to send it to the council? Aye. Okay. Motion carries 3-0. Our next agenda item is an update on the reverse auction for electrical usage in town buildings.
Do you want to start that, Mona, or?
If you like.
Um,
Yep, if you want me to. So we had gathered information for a CROG reverse auction, and we had submitted 4 of our larger accounts, being the fire department, library, 761 Old Main Street, and 699. They had done their the reverse auction procedure, as you can see in the resolution, and came up with some bidders and agreed to MP2, which came out to the $7,419 per kilowatt hour. The 4-year plan was the best option. We look historically, at least last year, we were at about 9.4 kilowatt hour for those 4 groups. Presently, we've dropped down for the last 6 months. I think that's more of a COVID situation that they had just dropped. We're expecting our rates to go up at any rate. So our recommendation is that we take these 4 large accounts and go on to the CROG MP2 energy contract for the 4 years.
Just a quick question. How does this interplay with our solar farm?
They
We're
would
getting
work
one-
together. Yeah, it would still complement. This is going to be for the supplier, and the generation credit we'd still get from solar. So we'd still get the credits as well as this lower rate for supplying.
Okay.
And along the lines of questions, I noticed we listed 4 town buildings. And I believe the new Mosier School is not part of the solar contract. Did we consult with the Board of Ed about being able to add their building to the contract?
We have it on the. Go ahead.
The Board of Ed is separate. They go out and do their own thing. So the solar contract is related to the credits that come over from the solar company to Eversource, and then they apply it appropriately we hope they apply it appropriately to the bills to reduce the town's energy cost. Now, this is on all the town bills, this rate of 7 cents and so on. The solar one is just a transfer of energy over to Eversource, and then they apply a credit to us.
Right.
And we had this, when we had this all set up, Mosier wasn't up and running yet. So we'd have to try to work with Eversource to try to get that incorporated in there as well. But
No, I wasn't looking to add Mosier to the solar deal because the building was built after that agreement. I was looking if this rate is more attractive than what the Board of Ed is getting, can they join in and get that lower rate for the particularly Mosier School, which is their newest building? Or is it separate because
no.
of the Board of Ed?
Right. I think
No,
they've already chose their third party. Is that correct?
the Board of Ed is a separate transaction. So they, and it wasn't included in part of the details associated with this auction.
Okay.
So they had, so we're going through CROG, which is how we're kind of leveraging the group purchasing power, I guess. Does Board of Ed get a special like education electrical rate? Is that why we're not kind of bidding out all the municipal buildings as part of the same package?
No, we used to be able to do that when the town was responsible for the school and town buildings. But then a number of years ago, when they did a split and sent all the Board of Ed facilities back to the Board of Ed, because they are under statute responsible for those properties. So we're sort of doing our own thing. We could probably have done that, but I think they went off and did a contract a year or two ago on their own.
Yeah, it would be interesting, I think, just as an exercise, and this is a multi-year deal. I'm sure they have their own multi-year deal, so it'd probably take some efforts to sync them up. But it'd be interesting to see, what rates are they getting, and then so this is going to be good for, it's a 48-month offer, so we have some time. But it would be good to see, when this one expires, does it make sense to try to do some sort of combined bid and leverage, the additional buildings that we have with them.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that.
I mean, obviously, overall, it comes out of one budget dollar. I know they're responsible for theirs and ours, but at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers paying the tax bill on the whole piece. So we're looking for the best rate we can all around, I guess is what I'm raising the question on. But other than that, I'm okay. This would be a motion to send this to the council for approval. Is that correct?
Yes, it'd be on the consent agenda.
Okay, I know the packet came. I haven't had a chance to look at it working remote today. So do we have a motion to move this to our consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to send the resolution for Monday's December 21st town council meeting for the authorization regarding electricity purchasing agreement with an electric energy supplier.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Item 4 is an update on the budget process. And let me preface it. I had reached out to John on this after sitting on a CCM training seminar and kind of putting some timetables into place. And one of the big pieces that came out of that call is recognizing most likely that our meetings may not be in person for budget season, and starting to put a plan together now on how we want to interact this year. Last year was kind of, we did it on the fly because COVID hit and we didn't get the plan fully. So some departments we spoke to, some departments we didn't speak to in as much depth. So that was the purpose to start that discussion tonight. Because before you know it, we'll be in March.
Right.
Hopefully I covered that correctly, John.
Yes, so what we just put in is a example of something we used a couple of years ago, and usually follow this template for a number of years. And it was done back in, I guess, the 2018-19 budget. The only true number on there is the bottom line where the budget has to be adopted subject to whatever the governor might do and executive orders, May 17th of 21. And again, it's sort of, the dates may not line up correctly, but it's sort of how it goes about, where try to get the council the budget by the end of March. we do a public hearing in which the town manager, and if the town council so wants, the Board of Education can make a presentation, and then there's a opening so you could get public comment and so on. And then what we used to do is schedule workshops, and as Alan mentioned in the past, the council would pretty much meet with every department for, a few minutes to, an hour or so. So that's more or less like the batting order that we used, so that we can get to an adoption by May 21st. And I think last year it sort of hit in the middle of the budgeting process because of COVID, and we stopped having in-person meetings and started developing our Zoom talents at that time, where I think the council focused on the major budgets as opposed to all the budgets and so on. So this is more just a roadmap as something where if you pick a couple days out and name the departments that the council wants to meet with, we could try that route or others. But as I say, this is just a starting point.
It's really, this is an opportunity just for an open discussion on what we thought worked last year and try to plan better this year. I mean, I'm also making an assumption that the governor will continue or issue an executive order that allows us to have these remote meetings, because I believe his executive order expires in February.
Yes.
And in anticipating what he's done with other items, he's just extended the deadline date. So I anticipate that's what will happen again.
Yep. You may be able to have the remote meetings maybe up until maybe the public hearing should be like a in-person meeting, but some of the other ones may be able to be remote. I'm just guessing because they're just discussions and so on. So, and then the adoption would most likely be on a night of a council meeting.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people at a public hearing. That may be the meeting to have remote for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the discussions I think that we will have as we go forward, knowing what the rules are. I think the important piece to start discussing now, though, is do we want to meet with every department, or really, once we see the budget, meet with those departments that we see either significant changes or have larger dollar items? Not that I'm minimizing the smaller departments, but if there's no change and there's nothing to discuss, there's no need to put them on the agenda.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it depends. I mean, having not seen the budget, kind of, and I think we've got some sense perhaps of based on the last couple of years where the trend is going. Yeah, I think it depends on the department. Maybe when we see the the draft book, we can make a more formal determination, but especially with the ability for people to dial in remotely, even if it's 10 minutes, it might be useful just to give the department heads a chance to kind of, talk about what they do and highlight, projects for the upcoming year to the public. It might be some benefit in that. I mean, I would imagine that's going to be fairly flat, except for where we have certain obligations, but may still be some value in letting folks know, what types of projects are coming down the pipe.
Yeah, I think what Chris said, I'd be inclined to include them for now, and then once we get the book, we can always remove them rather than trying to add them later if we remove them now type of thing. So.
Okay.
I think if you establish meeting dates, because I'm not sure about how school vacation comes into play in 2021 with the remote learning and all of that. But I guess once we establish dates, we can always pencil in like times so that the town council budget is at whatever time we start, 5:30. The town manager's budget at 5:30, 5:40. Some of the smaller budgets you may need just 10 or 15 minutes at the most on it, so that people know when to be ready to discuss their budget as an option.
And I'd love to see a way that we could engage the public. Since we've gone to remote meetings, that's the one piece that, to be honest, has been lacking. There was never a ton of people that attended meetings, but there was always a few that would come and comment. And I think it's an important component of a municipal council to hear from the public. So maybe we can promote that a little bit if people would like to voice.
We'll raise taxes 3 mils, Alan, and then you can have your standing room only 6 feet apart crowd.
That will be the town manager's budget proposal. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to hire
Um,
private
zero to
duty.
change it, but that's okay. Okay.
I
So,
have a general question. I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. Each year we kind of go through this process that we have to have the budget done by a certain date, even though we don't know what the state's budget's going to be and what we're getting. But because of our charter, there's really no way to get around that, I assume, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you don't adopt a budget, then you go on the 3 mil increased town manager's budget.
So, and just,
do it kind of back.
and I was just going to follow up on that question. Is that something that's due to our charter or is it the state statute?
Charter.
So if there came such a time where a future council was opening up the charter, they could potentially sync it to the state's calendar year, assuming that they get their budget done on time. But there would have to be some sort of weird, like short or long year at some point.
You shouldn't really base it on the state budget year because that fluctuates for constantly. I think one year they didn't adopt till November,
Yeah.
December. Mona, wasn't that
It
right?
was.
And
Yep.
so on. So at least here, when you have the third Monday in May,
Mhm.
your final, and then the town can start doing what it has to do as far as getting the tax bills prepared to get out on a timely basis. And then we start getting our money in to operate starting in July. So I've been a big fan of this third Monday in May as the final game of the season, and then we can start moving forward to get prepared for the new budget year.
Yeah, the real issue is we have the same fiscal year end date as the state does, and so, they're not staggered, so you're kind of stuck with this model,
Yeah, really for the state, it's those 5 or 6 revenue grants that we get throughout the year from ECS, pilot, and so on. And if we know those numbers when we adopt the budget and they come true during the budget year, then there's no harm. But it's when they decide to not fund something that it impacts the town in mid-budget.
Well, like 2 years ago, there was the whole teacher pension potential issue. So there are
Yeah.
other things. Trying to think of,
Yeah. So that puts the town on the spot to make a fund or not fund decision on that third month in May.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, just one other thing, as we think about the budget schedule, so last year, like Alan mentioned, COVID kind of took us by surprise. Is there anything in terms of, the sequencing of different anticipated funds from the state or FEMA grants, anything like that, COVID related that might, impact the schedule or that we would want to take into account? And like you mentioned, we're locked into that third Monday, but in terms of the sequencing of anything, or just, any impact that we might want to consider?
I think you'd have to see what's happening at that time, because I think now some of the FEMA money and CARES money is ending at the end of December unless the people in Washington pass some stimulus packages. So I would tend to not have that be like a major decision that affects the scheduling of the budget.
And the only other piece to this, Chris, Jeff, just from prior years going through this, were there any, I know there's certain nights that tend to be longer than others. And this isn't something we have to finalize tonight. Maybe there's some departments we want to shift around a little bit to kind of even out the flow of some of the nights. And we can look at that as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, because we're not asking people to stay late at work in the back of the room, for a couple hours, maybe, and I think there's this trade-off, right, of how many nights do you want to do versus how many long nights do you want to do. And maybe with the flexibility of working remotely, it's less onerous to have more short meetings, versus longer ones.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's something, I mean, like, Board of Ed and the police usually have their own time, but also, like you mentioned, it's going to depend what's in the budget book as well. If everything looks relatively flat, then there's probably not as much discussion, but I think that'll we'll kind of see.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's, obviously the book is going to drive the discussions.
People had like work trips and softball practices and all these really good reasons why a different time didn't work for other folks, and we probably aren't even gonna have that in the spring. So we'll see if what our attendance looks like.
Well, today's a snow day, town hall's closed, and we're still able to meet. So, I mean,
No escape.
technology.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we'll just continue to have a discussion amongst us. I mean, I don't think there's anything we have to knock out tonight, but maybe we both share with our caucuses going back that we're having the discussion and come back with some suggestions
Yeah.
for next month's finance meeting.
Yeah, even if you get to like what are good dates in April
Yep.
to do it in, where if there is a school vacation that wipes out a number of counselors, then we can avoid that week. And then we can look at when the council chambers are open, because you do have to work around probably like planning and zoning and ZBA perhaps. But again, if they're doing Zoom meetings and if we do it in the council chamber or if we do it a Zoom meeting, then there wouldn't be that type of conflict that we had in the past.
Could we get an updated? I mean, I think if we feel comfortable with kind of this general format, could we get one updated with the actual dates? Because that, people are planning on going on vacation or whatever, they'll actually be able to bump that up against their calendars without, being concerned about how April 24th, 2018 translates to something in 2021.
Yeah, we could do that if this format looks like it could be possibly be used. As I said, we just threw this one out quickly as a discussion purpose, but we could sort of match up the dates, figure out when school vacation is scheduled, and then schedule nothing that week and so on, and then see if Tuesdays and Thursdays work as opposed to Wednesdays and so on. So yeah, we could try that for the next meeting. Next meeting we'll propose, town staff will propose a schedule based on the 2018-19 format.
Okay, that works. And so I think the general conversation, for the overall view of the conversation, it sounds like we're going to anticipate that this will be a virtual event at this point, unless something changes. The vaccines come out faster, or we're more comfortable meeting in person.
Yes.
And the executive order takes place to extend.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. That's about as far as we want to get with that at this point, but the sooner I think we set some dates, the easier it is for people to plan. All right, let's go through FEMA related expenses and reimbursements.
Okay,
Mona, that you for this one?
it is me again.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we had in the handout before a lot of excitement started with FEMA. So we were going to focus on the middle of the handout and talk about the FEMA obligated. So we did get finally our letter from FEMA saying that they had obligated us for the $36,483, the 75% that came through. And we did get our state OPM money for the $24,592. So our June 30th fiscal year end is complete as far as FEMA is concerned. With that done, within a short period of time, they are ready to just get moving on the 2021 year. We've already got approval from FEMA to start putting information in for the July through December. fiscal year. And actually, they're not doing the full fiscal year. They're cutting it off in December and just giving us to March to do completion. We also got information from OPM yesterday that rather than doing the detailed invoice approach, they're actually going to give an allotment. So from the $45 million statewide, they created an allotment based on population, on grand list per capita density and so forth. So what Rocky Hill got for its July through December portion was an additional 180,612. And in total, that would give us a $205,204, including what we had received through June 30th. So what we have, if you looked at the lower part for the 2021 expenditures, we had 250,000 already earmarked, which included a large portion of that being the Board of Ed. We also have a couple of items coming in from the fire department. They need some items that would help them to disinfect their gear. We have the ambulance looking for some items as far as chest compression kits that would add to that. Those type of things would go into the FEMA report for possible reimbursement. So clearly we would definitely have enough expenditures to absorb our allotment for the $180,612. With that being said, they did request that we have approval from our council, at least something that can be documented in the minutes, that we have approval to request reimbursement for that amount of money. So if we could do something with that, I don't know, John, if we should do that now, or do you want to do that as other?
Well, I think as of right now, you're aware of it, and we probably put together a resolution, a couple sentences for the town council to adopt on Monday in their meeting to meet that approval item. So,
Okay.
I guess unless the finance committee doesn't want to accept the money from the state, as Mona said, is strictly formula driven. I don't know how much, I guess the onus is on the town to make sure that it qualifies for reimbursement so that we're not putting something erroneously in there and so on. But I think it's just more making them, the finance committee's aware of some of these FEMA and CARES money from the state. And there's one caveat we have to do is just agree that we want the money, so.
Right.
Mona, just clarify the two numbers for me. The FEMA money's 36,483.
Correct. Yes, that was 36,483. That was for the through the June 30th, and the state OPM was 24,592.
24,592. And then what was the OPM allotment?
180,612.
And the period that covers is
July 1 through December 30th.
okay,
30th,
7/1
definitely
through
not 31st.
30. Okay. Okay. All right. So, John, should we make a motion to move this to the council for approval pending a resolution? So at least it's in the minutes.
Yeah, but to be authorizing us to make a resolution to be presented at the town council meeting to accept the 180, Mona, or the 205?
We should probably remark on the 205, 204, which would include what we had from the June 30th plus the 180,612. So we should, I would say we should do the total allotment, 205, 204, and 5 cents.
Do we,
Okay.
so that's a very specific amount. Should we be that descriptive in the motion, or can we just say the total allotment? Because it would be an annoying technicality if that number somehow changed based on,
No. The OPM crew sent out a letter, a number of pages, and in there is a list of the 169 towns and what everybody's receiving. So we probably should go to the penny.
Yes.
So there's the 205, 204.05, and what's the 186.12?
That's
That
part of
is
that
the-
205.
Right, that's the portion of it. That's the 180 plus the
Okay,
24,592.
oh, gotcha, okay. So the motion is really just for the 205 number.
Correct.
And we got to include the FEMA portion, or the FEMA doesn't need to be part of the resolution.
FEMA does not need to be part of it.
Okay,
Okay, so are we ready to do that? Or?
I'll entertain a motion. To accept
Uh,
money.
To make a motion that we send to the next town council meeting, a resolution to authorize acceptance of funds from OPM in the amount of $205,204.05.
second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0. Always nice to get some money coming in instead of going out. Reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditures through November 30th. Mona, is that for you?
That'll be
Okay.
done if he has any.
No, the only action in that account was that we did get $189,000 back from the state associated with the Stevens School roof school construction grant. So we
Yeah.
did get probably whatever we submitted less 11%, which they generally withhold now. And so we did get some of that money back. And few meetings ago, we did talk about a request from the Board of Ed reimbursing them for some of their COVID expenses that they incurred to get the schools up and running and so on. And so if the town was going to reimburse them, this was one of the areas we were going to look to give them the money back at. But now that we got the 180,000 from from OPM, we could use some of that money to offset those COVID expense requests from the Board of Ed. Correct, Mona?
That's correct.
Most of those request itemized listings look like they do qualify for reimbursement.
Right, most looked eligible.
Just a quick question. Am I correct? Do we have 3 projects that are waiting to go through audit? Stevens Roof, Mosier, and the high school. Are those all 3 still waiting? There's funds being held back from us due to audit.
Yes. Well, the high school and Mosier are completed projects, and we got notification on the high school. We're just waiting for the audit division to send us a letter, but I don't know what they're doing, where they may not be able to go on location where all the paperwork is. So there's those 2, and then this school one be a potential one, but that basically could be a folder with maybe 4 or 5 invoices and to support the expenses. So that should be like an in-house audit they could do at their desk. But there's 2 major ones that we're waiting to hear from, and then a third minor one that's not quite in that stage yet.
Right. So when you add the 3 up, I mean, there could start to get to be a little bit of a sizable sum, I would guess.
The schools could be in the millions. This one here, could be more in the tens to 20,000s.
Yeah, the roof's not as much, but yeah,
Yeah.
pretty effective. Great.
So when we get those, do we just automatically apply that? Well, I guess for the schools, we just automatically apply that to the the servicing and the bonds. or we have to determine where that money goes?
The money we get back should be applied to the cost of the construction of that school. And then any extra funds would be applied to the debt service, right, Chris?
And then with this 189 that came back, do we have to determine where that is going to go if we're not going to allocate that to the school portion of the
Well,
COVID expenses?
the key word you said in there, we. Who is we that's going to determine it?
Or is there a
I
determination?
think in
to
the
make?
beginning of this, I thought it was like a yearly school project, a roof replacement project every fiscal year, and we'd use the grant money to supplement the next year one. Then probably have to come up with the 46%. So yeah, something would have to be determined on how to use that money.
And then didn't the Board of Ed also recently get, and I know we don't deal with the Board of Ed's budget, but didn't they also get some money related to COVID expenses from the state?
Yes, and I believe they used all of that associated with personnel related increases, as well as those COVID, plastics protection items and items associated with protecting the student and the teachers, and perhaps additional employees to handle the bus runs to make sure things are done core. So most of the items that they use their money for was associated with more soft costs. And
I think we get the protections and the dividers, and they ended up with the bus monitors and the sub teachers and so forth. So
And they still have a need for additional funds to cover expenditures in the neighborhood of what? What's the dollar figure? Do we know?
yes,
I know it was a few meetings ago. I want to say it was
230,000.
230.
Yeah, and they had from student desks, and I'm not sure if that's actually going to be qualified because they resemble a student desk, but it was for the purpose of keeping the students separated, so that's debatable. But they also had a lot of the Chromebooks and keeping technology, which should be eligible, as well as the barriers, which is definitely an eligible cost.
Okay, so that discussion will happen at the council level to what goes, or is it going to start at finance?
well, there should be some presentation by the Board of Education requesting this money with some explanation on, uses and so on, sort of more from the horse's mouth answer to you, Alan, on your question, as opposed to us speculating what we think it is and so on. And then it would be more like a council resolution authorizing payment of these expenses, and we'll figure out how to do that accordingly.
Okay.
Through.
All right. Anything else on?
The only other thing is there is on there at the bottom in the school section, the electronic sign out in front of the high school.
Yep.
That was a 50-50 split between, I think, the football boosters and the board. And last night there was supposed to be a public hearing at, I think it was planning and zoning, because they needed some sort of special variance to put it out there. And it was a public hearing, and I believe there are some neighbors in the area that are going to be kind of vocal about it. And again, being a snow day today, I didn't really hear what the outcome was, and even if they did have the meeting. But if that got approved, then that's going to be something coming down the pike. We sort of encumbered that money so that the board doesn't look at it and think they have extra funds to play with. So.
Okay.
And is that? Go ahead, Al. Sorry.
No, I just know we had mentioned that previously on a finance meeting report. that there was a split between, I believe it was the football boosters and the Board of Ed.
And is it so it's listed as 30 here. Is that 30? Is it a $60,000 sign and our contribution is 30 and the football boosters is 30, or is it a $30,000 sign and then they're going to contribute 15?
The booster contribute 15 and the Board of Ed 15, so it's a total 30 costs for right now.
Okay, so for the town, that line would be, I guess, 15 once everything is settled.
Well, the 15 is already built in.
That would show on the revenue side.
As of right now,
Okay.
it's a $30,000 project, but there'll probably be additional expenses, but.
Okay. For 2 items, I think we covered them pretty well. State aid for municipalities.
There has been no change in that, so there was nothing to report on state aid for this month.
Okay, any chance we heard on the Pequot money for December?
Have not heard anything
Not yet, okay.
Okay.
All right, then let's go through the monthly financial report.
Okay. So for month of November, you can see the tax revenues are definitely ahead. We caught up. We're at 600,000 ahead of the benchmark, which is great news compared to doing the deferral program. So we are definitely where we need to be. In fact, a little bit ahead. I mentioned the supplemental bills for our motor vehicle have gone out. And we're also seeing a little bit ahead in the prior year tax collections. So overall tax collections are in good standing.
Keep going through expenses.
I'll keep going.
Yep.
So on other revenues, I think we are in good place for the most part. Still want to point out the interest revenue is obviously not doing well at 5%. Don't have any expectation that that will show any great improvements. So that will be a line item to watch for throughout the fiscal year. And the good side, as you go further down the page, conveyance tax is already up to 59%. And which is wonderful at this point in time. So hopefully that will do something to help us offset the shortage in some areas, such as the interest. Building is at 38, which is actually good. We should be around the 40% mark for the month of November. So overall revenues are in a good place. Let me jump toward expenditures. Again, looking for around 41% being what's expected for the month of November. Overall, we're right where we need to be. Probably point out fire department admin, it seems to be lower. They actually had a purchase order that carried in from the prior year for communications, which they used first. So you'll see that start to pick up in the next couple of months. Other than that, I think we've talked about the senior program, not expending the food money. So again, that's at 21% and will continue to stay low throughout until anything changes with the COVID situation. And education's at 31. Again, that's exactly where they need to be through November, basically 3 full months of school operation. Other than that, I think we should be where we need to be, unless there's any questions.
I just had a quick question. It looks like for principal payments, we're 70% used for the year, even though we're only, a few months into the fiscal year. Is that just the timing of when things are due, or?
That's exactly what it is. So we'll have a couple of interest payments that are going to be coming up in the next month, but also a principal payment coming in February. So it is timing. We try to stagger it so we can have the cash flow situation work in our favor.
Yeah, we generally make 1 principal payment for each bond and 2 6-month interest payments for each bond. So we're trying to stagger it so that it doesn't, the payments aren't made in the first half of the year. So we're trying to move more into the second half of the year. But our principal payments generally are about right in line, because we probably made our first payment of interest for those for our bonds.
Any other questions on the revenue expense side? No? Just double checking. All right. Legal bills.
Okay, in the packet is the spreadsheet. It probably has a combination of with a few November bills in it as well. A lot of it depends on when the attorneys process their bills. So I think we're pretty low. I think for the first 3 months, we had low legal activities with Merthyr Kalina, that they didn't charge us a retainer. And then we got our first retainer charge, I think, for October, because we started picking up a few more. We had a few more questions for her.
All right. Any questions on legal? All right. I know under other, John, we talked, you want to discuss, we need to talk about the executive order.
Well, 3 items. The first one is the executive order that was approved sometime, I believe it was yesterday, it went out. And again, the main item that affects the town is the town has the option to delay collecting property taxes, for, giving the payer an additional 60 days. So it's similar, following the model for the July payment, in which it wasn't due until October. They're allowing the towns to collect, instead of collecting February, they could collect on April 1st, giving an additional 60-day grace period. The council needs to approve that second installment payment arrangement, so that they added an additional 60 days, and then we're all set. If the town does not want to do what they did in the for the July payments, then you have to send something to OPM telling them that we're not doing it, or we're changing over to the other one. But I think it would probably be a wise thing to do, to allow the extra 60 days, because the town does spread its expenses out over the 6-month period. It's not like we need all our money February 1st and so on, but hopefully we'll get a good chunk of that money through our mortgage company payments, and then the other items will trickle in over the next 6 months. And then, except for supplemental that Jeff has to pay on motor vehicle, that we're not expecting a lot of motor vehicle revenue from that.
Don't spend it all one place, John.
Yeah. Once we get Jeff, then we got our motor vehicle covered.
Yeah. And John, let me just, jump in and say, I think the last time we did this, it was very well received. It ran very smoothly, and our revenues weren't impacted as much as we thought they could be.
Yeah.
Because of the mortgage companies. So,
Yep.
I'll just start off in saying, I would definitely think we should recommend to the full council for Monday that we move forward with a second extension. But of course, we'll have to make a motion here if we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know that it impacts a lot of people, but the people that it does impact, it's probably, some help at a pretty troubling time. And from my standpoint, given that we didn't really take much of a hit, Mona just gave us the report. The tax collections we're actually doing better than last year. Then, if we can afford to do it, it looks like we can, then I think we should at least give that option to people who might need it.
Yeah.
All right. So how about we make a motion to send this to the council and include on the agenda for Monday under new business, so it can be discussed at the council level?
Right. So I'll make a motion to add to the town council agenda on Monday, a motion to allow the delaying of payment of property taxes by 60 days would have been due February 1st to extending to April 1st.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. And on Monday, John, if you don't amend the agenda, we'll just make a motion at the council meeting to add that to the
Right.
existing agenda.
It may be easier from a time standpoint just to, we'll do the 2 resolutions and send it to the whole town council.
That's
And
fine.
then Alan, if you just take the lead to add it to the agenda. That'd be probably easier than trying to do an amendment and getting it
Yep,
all
no
around.
problem.
The other thing and other is briefly, the MDC adopted their budget on December 7th, and there's no increase in the ad valorem tax. The water use charge is going to go up from $3.97 a CCF to $4.05 a CCF. And they actually came in with a very, in their eyes, a flat budget. They are doing a lot of decreasing of headcount. So the headcount from 2020 dropped from 477 to 454 for 2021. And other than that, what I could do is just maybe forward a copy of the letter, the email that came in the other day, yesterday, for that. But it should be on the like the sanitation charge should be sewer charge should be flat for the coming budget year, and then the residents will see a 8 cents increase in their water bill. But all the other charges are staying the same. The clean water fund charge, which I think was in like the 410 range, that's going to stay the same, and those customer services. So there shouldn't be any impact to the residents on really on the water side for the coming budget year.
That's good news.
And they're doing all that and taking care of business in terms of different projects that were on their plate, or did they get it like did they get some sort of delay on needing to do any of that work that they were describing?
Yeah, I think has been on hold for quite a while, waiting to get back from DEEP. I'm sure that they're working with their political connections to work with the state political people to try to get, especially the money for the Hartford runoff for that large sanitation hill that they have there that they've been carrying for a while. So, and I don't think DEEP has, or whoever's supposed to make the decision on those, that phase 3 of that piping work that they're doing to separate the sewer and the runoff from the rain.
Okay.
And then the last thing,
Yeah.
the last item I have before we hopefully call it a night and go back and finish shoveling. Probably at our next finance meeting, we'll have the auditors there because we should be getting copies of our June 30th audit report, CAFRA, as well as the state and single audit and so on. So I already talked to Nicoletta about having her come in for the January Finance Committee meeting. And then sometime in the next couple of weeks when we get our printed copies, we got electronic copies, but we get printed copies, we'll be sending those out to the town council as well. And the other item relating to the auditors is that they're merging with another firm called Clifton, Larson and Allen, CLA. They're sort of considered part of like if you remember the old days when I was growing up, there was the big 8 accounting firms. Now it's, I think, the big 4. I guess they're considered part of the big 10. They may be 8 or 9 in the rankings. They have 20 locations in the Northeast, which includes from Washington, D.C. north. They have 130 offices in total. And from what I've been told that everything stays the same. We'll be dealing with the same people we've been dealing with in the past and so on. And I guess it's just an opportunity for some people that, and hopefully help out the staff people to get more specialized and offer them more clients with that specialization. But I believe that that will probably go in place to get completed sometime in 2021. But again, we originally started with Scully and Wolf and then merged around and so on. Now we're with a company called CLNA. So.
And we've got a contract with them that is it every 2 years? Is that how it runs?
Generally, finance sends it to the council to approve it for the next 2 years. And we have them under contract to do the June 21 audit.
Because as far as my experience with them and Nicolette and all the presentations they've given and the results that we've gotten, I think are good. Of course, anytime there's an acquisition, you want to make sure that stays the case. So it's good to know that if we do, not that we expect it, but if that service does go down, we're not locked in long term, and we could shop it around to the,
Right.
I guess, the 9 other firms in the Big Ten. So.
Right now, the Northeast region is going to be managed by Joe Kask, who been the managing partner of Bloom Shapiro. So it's according to the letter.
That just announced today.
This breaking news. Should we have a chyron at the bottom?
That,
I think
and then
it's really new news.
he sent an email. I think we got an email. I think everything came in yesterday about between 4 and 4:15,
Right.
and got caught up on it. But as they said, I'm not sure whether they told their clients first before they released it to the public. So I would assume it might have got released yesterday, if not.
Well, there's an online article at Accounting Today for people looking for late night reading that
I got an email on
Yeah,
it. I think
This meeting's that exciting that you go to Accounting Today, Jeff?
only on weekends.
This
It's
is
after the meeting.
finance, you know.
Yeah. Just for the crossword puzzle.
All right. To let John get to shoveling, if we have no other agenda items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And Chris going to shovel?
Yep.
Nice hat.
You have a
Okay.
second, Chris?
Second. That's a second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Happy shoveling. Stay safe.
Thank you. Good night.
Oops.